Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sriyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpadarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Deshatharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayate giram yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So we'll do a review of chapter 9. So chapter 9 is titled Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga. This is the most confidential type of knowledge, and the degrees of confidentiality increases as your consciousness gets elevated. So the first aspect of confidentiality is that we are Atman. We are not this body. We are not this Deha or Dehi. The second confidential element is that we have a relationship with Krishna, all of us. That is that sambandha aspect. And the third aspect of confidentiality that Krishna reveals here is that the more love that one has for Krishna, the more the Lord feels compelled to reciprocate with you. So a pure devotee, through their bhakti, can purchase the Supreme Lord. All they need is unmotivated love for the Lord. And that love for the Lord, that journey begins with a little bit of Shraddha, faith, even the size of a mustard seed, can take you places. So, Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedyah. So the Lord says the entire purpose of studying the Vedic scriptures is to ultimately discover that I am the Supreme Lord. So this chapter 9 is actually the essence of bhakti. And because it is the essence of bhakti, Krishna is calling it the king of all knowledge. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya. So the ultimate goal for a devotee is to achieve full Krishna consciousness. And that full Krishna consciousness is present in the very last shloka of chapter 9. So the mother of all rules, as we discussed, is to always remember Krishna. So this is the Viddivrata. These are the do's. Then mother of all don'ts is never forget Krishna. All other rules are called kinkaras. Kinkaras means servants. So this is the master rule that we all have to remember. Every other rule that we follow, like waking up early in the morning, chanting the holy names of the Lord, these are all considered servant rules. Keeping Ekadasi fast, reciting the Bhagavad Gita. So these are the only two things we need to remember as the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, which is to always remember Krishna, to never forget Krishna. So everything that one does in one's spiritual life is to try to remember Krishna. So the mind will take you in different directions, but we should tolerate the mind's nature of being like a monkey, jumping from branch to branch. So if you really look at it, Krishna is not looking for big things from us. He's looking to see, are you doing all you can to love him to the best of your efforts? So Krishna is not looking at what is it that you're giving him. He's looking at what is it that you're withholding from him. That is Krishna's calculation of bhakti, not what you're giving him. It's what you're holding back and keeping for yourself. So hence in Shloka 26, Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam. Singular, not plural. He doesn't say, offer me many flowers and many leaves and many fruits, and many varieties of nice drinkables. One leaf, one flower, one fruit, little bit of water, but done with absolute love and devotion for pleasing the Lord, and you've purchased Krishna. There is a nice pastime of Lord Ram in Ayodhya of how the Lord feels obligated to his devotee, even if they do a little small, in their eyes, in the devotee's eyes, it's a very small and significant act. But in the Lord's eyes, it's something huge that you've done. So after Lord Ram was exiled, they all leave for Ayodhya. They all meaning Sita Devi and Lakshmana. And after they enter the forest, they have to cross the river. And just as they were thinking, how are we going to cross the river? Lo and behold, a boatman arrives there. So Lord Ram asks, can you take us to the other side? The boatman says, certainly. So they board the boat and the boatman takes them over to the other side. And the Lord wanted to express his gratitude, Lord Ram. So he asks the boatman, I'd like to offer you something in return for your service. But I don't have anything to give you. The deeper understanding here is that anytime you serve the Lord and the Lord reciprocates with you or rewards you for that service, he's making sure he cancels out that debt. The Lord does not want to be indebted to you, because when he becomes indebted to you, he comes under your control. So he's very careful about who he accepts something from. He's very quick to give you his mercy and his blessing. He wants the equation to be, I guess you could say, nullified. So similarly, the Lord here wanted to reward the boatman, but he tells him, I have nothing to give you. And at that time, when the Lord glances over in the direction of Sita Devi, he notices a chain around her neck, and he requests her to kindly remove the chain so that he can offer it to the boatman. So as Sita Devi begins to remove the chain around her neck, the boatman says, no, no, I can't accept a reward for my service. See, a pure devotee does not want a reward from the Lord for their service. But the Lord insisted, no, 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 I have to give you something because you've done some nice service, so I should repay you. The pure devotee doesn't want any repayment from the Lord. So the boatman very cleverly says, in this area that you've come to, we have an agreement. Every boatman gives another boatman a ride for free. So Lord Ram was a little puzzled. He says, I know you are a boatman, but I'm not a boatman. I'm Dasharatha Sutta. I am the son of a king. I'm not a boatman. To which the boatman responds, my dear Lord, I'm just a small boatman. I take people from one side of the river onto the other side. But you're the biggest boatman. You're the master boatman. Because you have the power to carry the Jivatmas from the banks of the material world onto the banks of the spiritual world. You can help us cross that ocean. And therefore, you are that master boatman. You have the ability to take your devotees and help them cross over into the spiritual world. So the boatman asks, do we have an agreement? So if you want to pay me back, don't pay me back with material things. If at all you are pleased with my service, please give me an opportunity to serve you more. Please enable my bhakti a little bit more, so that I develop pure love for you through your grace and through your mercy, and ultimately I will come back to you. Therefore, Krishna is looking at, what are you offering him? How much are you offering him, and how much are you keeping back for yourself or for your family? When you are ready to give up absolutely everything for Krishna, Krishna is very happy. So on the material platform, when we come to the temple, we may see that there are various types of services. Some people may be sweeping, mopping, cleaning. A few devotees are actually preaching. And then, of course, the exalted devotees are on the altar offering worship to the Lord. But in the Lord's eyes, the person who's on the altar, the person who's preaching, and the person who's sweeping and doing some menial service in the temple, in the Lord's eyes, we are all equal, because we are all offering services as per our capacity, which means if you've been given more capacity and more intelligence and more talent, the Lord expects you to use that very intelligently in His service. So if you know you can do more, but you're not doing more, that is what Lord Krishna is looking at. Let's say you have more time to offer in service, but you are not extending your time to the service of the Lord. That's the calculation that the Lord is making. So if I have X, but I'm only offering X minus to Krishna, He's wondering why you're not offering everything to me. Don't you want to come back to me? So in this chapter, Krishna says the qualification to understand who he is and to ultimately come to the path of complete surrender is non-enviousness and faith, anushuyava and shraddha. So what is this non-enviousness? I'm sure if I ask you, are you envious of Krishna? Your answer is going to be no. Why would I be envious of Krishna? He's the Supreme Lord. So when the Lord says, stop being envious of me, what does he really mean? Because none of us will accept that we are like Ravana or Kumbhakarna or Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu. We will not accept it. We will immediately reject being compared to the demons. We will think to ourselves, we are a little bit better than the demons. So we may think only the demons are super envious of the Lord. So you and I may think we are not really envious of the Lord. We are too busy taking care of things. We don't have time to be envious of the Lord. Our life is hectic, our life is stressful, our life is busy. So why is the Lord using the word envious? Don't be envious. So be non-envious, Anusuya. So we'll use an analogy and maybe that will make it clear. You know, we all like watching movies, or we're all engaged in watching sports, whatever it is that we really love to do. But I think movies and sports probably are the best examples that we can use to explain this. So when we watch a movie, we're transported to a different world, an imaginary world, especially if we are watching something based on fiction. So as we're watching the movie, if I were to ask you, which character would you like to play? Or which character do you relate to most? Or would you desire to be? Most of us would take the protagonist role, you know, the person like Rajnikant or Amitabh Bachchan. We'll always imagine that we are the hero or heroine in that particular movie. Similarly, in a cricket match, if we ask, if you had the talent, who would you like to be? To be somebody who's supremely talented like a Sachin Tendulkar or a Virat Kohli, or maybe a great bowler or a great fieldsman. So we'll always select the roles that puts us in the best light, that can garner attention, that can make us feel successful, that can give us the sense of pride. The fact that we aspire for the juicy roles or the, juicy talent or the topmost talent, that is enviousness. You may protest and say, why are you calling me envious? It's just in my mind. It's not that I'm acting out on it. So I'm vicariously thinking that I can play the role of a hero or heroine. I'm vicariously thinking I can be that greatest batsman if I ever had an opportunity to step on the cricket grounds. So why is this still considered envy? Because you want something that you don't have. So similarly, in this world, when we want to acquire wealth, acquire intelligence, acquire fame, acquire beauty, you know, the 6 opulences of the Lord that we have, that we talked about in the Secrets of the Gita revealed. If those 6 opulences we are chasing because we want some of it, that is being envious of Krishna. Because we want what only Krishna has. What Krishna has unlimitedly, we want unlimitedly. We want unlimited wealth, unlimited knowledge, unlimited fame, unlimited beauty. Why? Because everybody's eyes will fall on you. Everybody will respect you. They will think, here goes a great man or a woman. This is enviousness. When we want things that genuinely belongs to the Lord, and when we want an unlimited supply of those things for ourselves, that means we are trying to be Krishna. That is what the Lord means when he uses the word, become non-envious of me. Don't compete with me. Cooperate with me. Accept what I give you. You work hard. Whatever results I give you, if you're smart, you will use it back in my service. That is what Krishna wants to see from you. So the qualification Krishna says to receive this knowledge is that to really receive it and understand it, realize it, and put it into practice. The qualities required is Shraddha and Anasuya. I don't know whether it was yesterday or day before yesterday, I had posted Prabhupada's quotes. Prabhupada defines humility. When you come to the understanding that your wealth, your power, your beauty, your knowledge, your family members, your gun, it's not going to protect you from death. That is humility. To know that you're helpless, you're insignificant, and to be comfortable with that, that is humility. So there are some important shlokas from chapter 9 we'll go into. So in the first shloka, Krishna is saying, my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. And Krishna says here, Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartum Avyayam. Raja Vidya, the king of education. Raja Guhyam, the king of confidential knowledge. Pavitram, he says, this knowledge of the relationship and the fact that I reciprocate, this is the purest knowledge. Idam Uttamam, this transcendental knowledge, it's topmost. Pratyaksha, by direct experience. So only if you practice your sadhana, you will actually experience this. Avagamam, understood. Dharmyam, this is the actual principle of religion. The principle of religion is to know that you are eternally a servant of Lord Krishna, and therefore your dharma, your topmost dharma, is to serve Krishna. If everybody learns to serve Lord Krishna, then society will naturally have peace. there will be no corruption. Susukham, not just sukham, susukham. Knowing this and practicing this, Krishna tells you what is the result. You will experience ananda, permanent happiness. Avyayam, and this is everlasting. It just keeps increasing and increasing and increasing. The more you love Krishna and serve his devotees, the more you experience this bliss. But kartum, that means you have to do something about it. Once you understand this knowledge, seva is important. So this knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting. And because you have realized that it brings you great joy, you perform your seva with great joy. So if you walk into any ISKCON, you will see every devotee has a nice, beautiful, bright smile on their face. They have a nice tilak. They are enjoying themselves as long as they are in the temple. So you are experiencing bliss when you are associating with like-minded individuals. This kind of bliss you will not experience if you go to the bar with your friends, or to the movies with your friends, or to go out to a restaurant with your friends. You will not experience this kind of bliss. This is a completely different feeling of coming to the temple and simply serving each other, loving each other, having these loving exchanges with the other sadhus, the other sadhakas. And when you're experiencing such bliss, where can there be hatred in your heart for another devotee? It's not possible. Therefore, the natural outcome of your sadhana should be non-enviousness of the devotees, and it extends to Krishna. A couple of other important shlokas that I want to talk about is we'll go to shloka, I think, let's go to shloka 18 for a definition of God. So in shloka 18, Krishna is defining Bhagavan, or Paramatma rather. Gatar bhartha prabhu shakshi nivasah sharanam suhrit prabhavah pralayah sthanam nidhanam bhijam avyayam. Krishna is saying, I am the goal. So Krishna is saying he is the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. Suhrit. You cannot have a better friend than me, a more intimate friend than me. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place and the eternal seed. So Krishna is giving a sum total definition of him. He is the supreme controller. He is the supreme enjoyer. And he is the supreme benefactor. So this covers everything in manifest nature, this particular shloka, 18. So, but before that, Krishna comes back to those who are Mudas. This Mudas Krishna has spoken about in chapter 7. So the psychology of the Mudas is explained in shlokas 11 and 12. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature is the supreme Lord of all that be. And in the next shloka, Krishna is saying, those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. The psychology of the Mudas is that they don't believe in surrender, not to anybody. And in the next two shlokas, the psychology is contrasted with the psychology of the Mahatmas. This is a symptom exhibited by the Mahatmas. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. What are they doing? Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So on one extreme, you have the atheist and demoniac, and the other extreme, you have the great Mahatmas who are great devotees of the Lord. So Arjuna could think, what about all those people who are neither rejecting you nor fully surrendered to you? Where do they fall? Where do they fall? That's the next two shlokas. In that, Krishna is saying, others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse and many, and in the universal form. So Krishna is saying there are people who fall in between these two categories, between the category that does not surrender and the other side, which has fully surrendered. That means there must be some people in between this pendulum or this continuum, the straight line. And Krishna is giving us the categories of these three people. Jnana yajnena chapyanye yajanto mamupasate ekatvena pritakvena bahuda vishvato mukham. Ekatvena pritakvena bahuda vishvato mukham. So there are some who try to approach me, but they do it in a different way. One is ekatvena. Some people believe that I don't have form. Actually, ekatvena means oneness. This is that aham brahmasmi. I am Brahman, you are Brahman, we are all Brahman. When we took birth, we came under the influence of Maya. Once we overcome the influence of Maya, we can be situated in the form of Supreme Brahman. That means there is one big super Brahman. We all are part of that super Brahman. It's just that we have forgotten our Brahmanness, if that is a word, because we have come under the influence of Maya. So this philosophy of Ekatvena was propagated by Sripad Adi Shankaracharya. So although Sripad Adi Shankaracharya is a great devotee of Lord Krishna, why is he propagating worship or the belief that Brahman is supreme, which is, you don't realize you're God, I don't realize I am God, because I've come under the influence of Maya Devi. The minute I can extricate myself from under the influence of Maya Devi, I will go back to my original platform of being Parabrahman. I will go and merge with Parabrahman. That means in essence, you are God, I am God. We've just not realized it. So, but in this concept of Brahman, there is no concept of service. There is no acceptance of Lord Krishna. There is only acceptance of Aham Brahmasmi. I need to come to that realization that I am Atman eternally. So that's the lowest level of, you could say, spirituality. To think that you are Brahman. which means it's one step higher than being an atheist. Actually, in Vaishnava Parampara, they say actually this is worse than an atheist because you want to become God. So this is Ekatvena, where you go and merge with the Brahma Jyotir, but Krishna himself will say, this is a pretty dicey situation. This is a pretty precarious situation. Because you're not engaged in any service, at some point you're going to become bored. You'll become envious and say, what is this nonsense? I'm just sitting around and doing nothing. That minute that thought crosses, that Atman, bus, you have to come back to the material world. So you worked hard to achieve Aham Brahmasmi. And then one day you'll think, what is this boring thing, Aham Brahmasmi? The minute you think like that, Krishna says you have to take birth again. So you worked so hard to realize that you are Aham Brahmasmi. You got the result of Sayujya Mukti and then finished. One little doubt creeps in your mind, you're done. You got to start all over again. So Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, this Ekatvena is pretty problematic. It's difficult. Prithakvena, in duality. So here you at least accept that there is a difference between Atman and Paramatman. So Krishna gives you credit for recognizing that you are different than him, that you will never be Supreme Lord. And in this duality, you may also be worshipping the demigods. And then the highest platform within the material world, that is. So, which is, remember, this is the categories of individuals who are practicing some spirituality, but they are not reached that pure devotion. The highest among non-pure devotion is the Bahuda Vishvatah Mukham. Some people worship the universal form of the Supreme Lord in his Virat Rupa. The universal form of the Supreme Lord is not real. It doesn't exist. But anyway, some people worship this aspect of the Lord in the sense that everything is contained within this Virat Rupa form of the Lord. This Virat Rupa form of the Lord does not exist anymore once all the universes are annihilated and go underwater. So which means even this Virat Rupa form of the Lord is actually temporary. What is eternal is the form of Lord Krishna. It's the form of Lord Narayana. This Virat Rupa only exists as long as the material universe exists. Otherwise, it does not exist. But Krishna is saying, okay, between this and this, these are the three categories. Between the extreme atheist and on the other side, the pure devotees, the Mahatmas, these are the other categories of quote unquote devotees who are practicing service. There's a very interesting shloka in 22. Very nice shloka. Very important shloka for devotees. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyukthanam yogakshemam vahamyam. So we discussed how the Supreme Lord says that if we worship him exclusively by meditating on his form, Krishna says, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. Vahami means Krishna personally carries. Vaham Yaham. So there's a great Acharya in the Sri Sampradaya, Ramanuja Sampradaya. He was meditating on this particular shloka and he came across this word, Vaham Yaham. And he thought, does the Lord really personally carry for a devotee what they have and also gives them what they lack? So he thought somewhere somebody transcribed this incorrectly. So in his copy of the Bhagavad Gita, he strikes out the word Vahamyaham, Vahami, and replaces it with the word Karomi, which means the Lord does not personally come for his devotees. He engages agents, and through other agencies, he makes it happen. Which means the Lord actually meant, I will get it done for them. It's not, I will personally do it. But the Lord is saying clearly here, he will personally do it. So why did Arjunacharya have this doubt? He thought it was a mistake and changes the word Vahami to Karomi. So he closes the book and goes to take a bath. Meantime, his wife is at home and two beautiful boys arrive at the door with groceries, with charity. One of the young boys is extremely dark complexioned and beautiful with curly hair. And the other boy is extremely fair complexioned with curly hair. So who are these two personalities? Krishna and Balaram had come to visit. But when the wife sees both of them, she becomes very enchanted with their beauty. So they say, we've come to give this in charity, and they turn around to leave. And she tells them, why are you going away? Please come inside, please spend some time. And to this, the two boys respond, your husband, we are afraid of him. He beats us up. And the wife was astonished. She said, why would my husband beat you up? You're such young children. You're so beautiful. He's a pious man. He would never lay his hands on you. At that time, the two young boys turn around and say, oh, just look at our back. Look at all these welt marks that we have on our back. Your husband whipped us. Saying this, they said, we cannot stay here much longer. Your husband, we don't feel very safe being around him. So she gets upset when they leave. And of course, when her husband has come back, when Arjunacharya comes back, she says, what did you do to those two boys? Why did you beat them? And he asked, what two boys are you talking about? And she says, but these two boys said that you beat them. He said, describe those two boys. And when she describes the two boys, Arjunacharya immediately realizes that this is the Lord who had come. And he understood that the welt marks on their backs was the word that he struck out, Vahami, and replaced it with the word Karomi. So he quickly goes to the book, strikes out the word Karomi, and replaces it with the original word Vahami. The Lord, he understood, was indicating to him that the change that he made was incorrect. That the Lord does personally come into the life of his devotee and helps him retain what he has and gives him what he lacks so that he can make progress. So in Shloka 25, the Lord comes back to demigod worship. Different types of worship leads you to different places. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me. And to show how those who worship him conquer him. And for the first time in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is expressing his emotional desire. If one offers me with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Krishna is expressing his desire, what he wants us to do. And we discussed in the very next shloka, Krishna is saying, if you can't fulfill my desire, then whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. You please note, Krishna has not used the words accept in this next shloka. So the level of your surrender indicates the level of the Lord's reciprocation with you. If you're chasing things and you really don't want Krishna in your life, he says, at least do this to protect yourself. He's saying, at least if you're a little bit intelligent, you don't have love for me now. At least by doing this, by offering everything that you have in my service, you will be free from karmic reactions. At least you should have that much intelligence to escape this bondage in this life. And then in the next shloka, Krishna says, in this way, you'll be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me, in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. So he's saying, if you start down this process of at least offering everything to me, what is the result? I negate all of your karmic reactions. And if you continue to practice this, you will come ultimately to the path of liberation, and ultimately you will come back to me. And then the famous shloka, I envy no one, I am not partial to anyone. How do we understand this? Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshyosti na priyah ye bhajantyutumam bhaktya mai te teshu chapyaham. This particular shloka, samaha, I'm equally disposed, aham, sarva bhuteshu, to all living entities. I am not partial. Na me dveshya, nor do I hate anybody. But, he uses the word but. But those who render devotional service, oh, they are very dear to me. Because I am residing in them and they are residing in me always. So Krishna says, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Again, Krishna is expressing his feelings here. So what's the difference? When the Lord says, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone, I am equal to all, he's referencing to himself as Paramatma. The Paramatma resides within every moving and non-moving living entity. So as Paramatma, when the Lord says, I am not partial, I am not envious, I am equal, he is saying he is neutral. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Here, Krishna is referencing to himself as Bhagavan. You remember we spoke about 3 different levels of realization of the Lord, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So the first 2 sentences, the Lord is referencing to himself as Paramatma. In the next sentence, the relationship has changed. If you have accepted him as Bhagavan, the supreme, the topmost, Satchidananda, then the Lord, out of his own free, causeless mercy, becomes your friend. And because such a devotee is selflessly serving him, the devotee has also accepted the Lord as his supreme friend and benefactor. So as Bhagavan, the Lord is impartially partial. Vibhishana advises Ravana, the right thing to do is to return Sita Devi. But Ravana does not listen to him. Therefore, Vibhishana leaves, comes to see Lord Ram. And when Lord Ram sees him, he addresses him as Lankapati, meaning the ruler of Lanka, O king of Lanka. Everybody surrounding Lord Ram were puzzled. Why is the Lord calling him as Lankapati when in reality it is Ravana who's sitting on the throne? So they ask him, my dear Lord, why are you addressing Vibhishana as Lankapati? Because if you say this, it's going to come true. So the Lord responds that Vibhishana is already the king of Lanka. At that time, the devotees ask Lord Ram, well, what happens if Ravana suddenly decides to surrender to you? You've already given the kingdom to Vibhishana. What are you going to do? What if Ravana realizes his mistakes and comes and falls at your lotus feet? How are you going to handle that situation? Lord Ram says, if Ravana comes to me, I'll give him Ayodhya. What's the problem? You will give him Ayodhya. Bharata is ruling Ayodhya in your name. What will happen to Bharat? What if he comes and says, please give me this kingdom? Of course he won't, but if he does, what would you do? Oh, I will give Bharata Vaikunta. He can take over Vaikunta. And the devotees say, but then Vaikunta is your residence. What will you do? Where will you stay if you give Bharata the opportunity to take control of Vaikunta? Where will you go, my Lord? To which Lord Ram says, I will go reside in the heart of my devotees because that's the most comfortable place for me. And I'm happy there. I don't need wealth and this, that, and the other. So this is the Lord's mood. The Lord is impartially partial, which means even if Ravana comes, Lord Ram will favor him simply because he has come in the mood of surrender. So whoever takes the Lord's shelter, the Lord becomes impartially partial. So whoever approaches the Lord with sincerity and faith, the Lord is saying, I benedict them because they have approached me. I cannot reject them. So Bali Maharaj's sister Ratnamala, in some scriptures it says it's his daughter, Ratnamala. You know, when Vamanadev comes as this tiny, beautiful looking Brahmana, she falls in love with him. And she thinks, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I had a baby like this? And if he were my child, I would feed him at my breast. So the minute she lays eyes on Vamanadev, this is what she thinks. And then when Vamanadev increases his size and takes those 3 giant steps and puts his foot on Bali Maharaj's head at Bali Maharaj's request. Bali Maharaj completely surrenders to him. She becomes furious because she thinks, if this is indeed the Lord, he has actually tricked my brother or my father. She becomes furious. She says, if this were my child, I would put him to death immediately. No remorse, no compassion. So momentarily, she had the desire to have the Lord as her child. And in the next minute, her mind, her heart had changed. She thought, I wanted to kill. So the Lord reciprocates with Ratnamala by giving her an opportunity to feed him as a mother when she comes back as Putana. And he also reciprocates with her desire to try to kill him. So she applies poison, tries to take his life, but of course, you cannot conquer the Lord that way. But because she had this desire to be his mother, the Lord reciprocates and gives her liberation, where she has Salokya. She goes into the planets where the Lord resides. So the Lord Krishna accepts her milk, kills her, but in the process gives back or gives her a spiritual body where she can go back into the Vaikuntha planets to serve him. And then most important shloka for us. Actually, let's look at here. So we looked at shloka 29 right now. Shloka 30, even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. So Krishna is expressing that when we are practicing bhakti yoga, we may not achieve perfection. We may continue to do things that are against Shastra. But in Krishna's mind, he considers you saintly. Why? Because you have now taken his shelter. You're convinced that he's the Supreme Lord. You're still working through your internal demons. Krishna is quite okay with it. So if a devotee apparently is performing some abominable action, Krishna expects you to ignore it. Because in Krishna's eyes, that person is still a devotee. He's just working through his anattas. And Krishna says such a person, even though they may be committing abominable acts, but because they are determined to become a pure devotee of the Lord, what happens to them? He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Krishna is saying, I don't want to make this statement. I would rather my devotee makes the statement that my devotee never perishes, because whatever my devotee says, I have to make it true. The Lord is beholden to the words of his pure devotees. So Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to declare that anybody who has surrendered to Krishna, but they have not yet achieved perfection, they will never perish. They will continue down their path and continue to make progress. Then Krishna says, O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, and Shudras, can attain the supreme destination. So your Varna or your ashram does not dictate whether you go back to Krishna. What determines you're going back to Krishna? The fact that you have taken shelter in him. So Krishna is categorically stating, anybody and everybody who takes shelter of him can come back to him. The only criteria is that you have to have surrendered to Krishna. So why is Krishna saying women, Vaishyas and Shudras are considered lower birth? Because in Sanatana Dharma and Vedic scriptures, only the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas were allowed to go to the Gurukul to study. Women were not allowed into the Gurukul. Vaishyas were not, and so were Shudras, not allowed. So Krishna is saying, if you have gone to the Gurukul, it means you were in a Brahmana class or Kshatriya class. And therefore you get exposed to knowledge about the Supreme Lord. You learn the Vedic scriptures. And by learning the Vedic scriptures and practicing them, you can come to the Supreme Brahman stage. What happens to all the rest of us who don't go to Gurukul and who can't study, who are not allowed to study the scriptures? Krishna is so merciful, he is saying. Such people, all they have to do is take shelter of me. They may not have the capacity to study the Vedas thoroughly. So your birth doesn't determine your opportunity to go back to Krishna. Your surrender determines your opportunity to go back to Krishna. So Krishna is saying, if women, Vaishyas and Shudras, if they just surrender to me, they can come back to me. Krishna is saying, then what about the righteous Brahmanas and the devotees and the saintly kings, the Raja Rishis? I mean, if they have so much determination, can you imagine how quickly they'll come back? He's contrasting the people with lower birth with people who are on the righteous path, like Brahmanas, the pure devotees, the kings, the Kshatriyas. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. So Krishna is giving instructions now in the middle section. He's telling you repeatedly what you should do. You should offer loving service to him. And then the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, which is there in Shloka 34, which is Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskuru mam evaishyasi yuktvaivam atmanam matparayanah. Manmana, always thinking of me. Bhava madbhaktaha, by always thinking of me, they become my devotee. And when they become my devotee, what do? Matyaji, they worship me. They offer obeisances to me. Actually, this shloka goes in reverse. Krishna is saying, if you can't always think of me, at least take my shelter, become my devotee. If you can't worship me, if you can't become my devotee, then at least learn to worship me. If you've not learned how to worship me, then at least begin your journey by offering your obeisances unto me. So although the shloka is coming in this particular direction from the highest to the lowest, so Krishna is moving from highest to lowest. His preference is that you are always thinking of him. Manmana, matmana. Well, if you can't always think of me, at least become my devotee. If you can't become my devotee, at least begin by worshipping me. If you don't have time to worship me, can you at least offer obeisances to me once a day or maybe twice a day? Like this, he says, if you go in reverse by offering obeisances, you learn to worship Krishna. By learning to worship Krishna, you become his devotee. By becoming his devotee, you're always thinking of Krishna. Like this, your soul is always absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So engage your mind always in thinking of me. That's Krishna's preference, first preference. Second preference, become my devotee. Third preference, offer obeisances to me. Fourth preference, worship me. Actually, it should be reverse. Worship me and then offer obeisance. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So this is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. So this now takes us to chapter 10, which is called Vibhuti Yoga. The word Vibhuti means opulent. And this chapter is slightly longer. We'll try to go through the slides quickly, and then maybe I can cover a little bit more tomorrow. So before we begin, let's offer our humble obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So today's acronym is HEAR. Again, Krishna talks about the importance of listening. The essence of the entire Bhagavad Gita is in 4 shlokas in this chapter 10. 8, 9, 10, and 11 is the summary of the Bhagavad Gita in 4 shlokas. Therefore, these 4 shlokas is called Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita. Who are those individuals who accept him? And how does the Lord go about revealing himself to those who have accepted him? So Krishna wants Arjuna to hear. Hearing is the process for developing faith. So we can quickly look at a few shlokas. It's a beautiful chapter. It's a very important chapter for devotees, chapter 10. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Listen again, O mighty armed Arjuna. Because you are my friend, for your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained." So something better than what is already explained in chapter 9. And Krishna begins by saying, "Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect, I am the source of the demigods and sages." So Krishna says, he's repeating himself, nobody understands me. How can they understand me? Because they all originate from me. Creation cannot understand the creator, because creation is insignificant in comparison to the creator. And Krishna repeats what he has already said in chapter 4. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all the worlds, he only, undeluded among men, is freed from all sins. So Krishna is again emphasizing there are very few people who really know who Krishna is and accept him as a supreme Lord. Only such a person, Krishna says, is actually free from all sins. And then Krishna talks about the qualities that emanate from him. That all these qualities are created by the Supreme Lord, which we've already seen evidence of in chapter 9, in chapter 8, in chapter 7, when the Lord says, I am this, I am that. So now he's going to come talk about the qualities. The intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. So Krishna is saying everything comes from him. Again, continuing with the definition of who is Bhagavan. Then Krishna says the 7 great sages, and before them the 4 other great sages, the Saptarishihi and the Sanat Kumaras, the 4 sons, the Brahmachari sons of Brahma, and the Manus come from me, born from my mind. And all living beings populating the various planets descend from them. One who's factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mine engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. So Krishna is saying, after observing all of that is there in creation and understanding that there is the greatest creator behind it, and this great creator must be the topmost yogi, Adi Yogi, then such a person becomes convinced and they become Krishna's devotees. Of this, Krishna saying there is no doubt. Krishna repeats again, I am the source of all the spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So the Chatushloke has begun. Text 8, text 9, 10, and 11. So this is the summary of the Bhagavad Gita in 4 shlokas. What is the summary? Krishna is the source of everything. But the rest of the shlokas, Krishna talks about his devotees, which means the devotees are his opulence. Krishna says, yes, I have all of this 6 opulences, but my real opulence is my devotees. They are the greatest. Even I don't understand them. So he begins by saying, I am the source of everything. And the next 3.5 shlokas, Krishna is eulogizing his devotees. What is he saying? The wise who perfectly know this, know what? That Krishna is the Supreme Lord. They engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So Krishna says the first thing they do is they perform service to me. And as they're performing the service with all their heart, they are devoted to Krishna. They're worshiping him. They're always thinking. In the next shloka, Krishna is telling us, what is his pure devotees? What do they do? The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, like Srila Prabhupada. And they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Krishna is saying, do you know what my devotees do? They're always talking about me. They're always engaged in my service. And they derive great satisfaction and bliss simply by being engaged in my service. Therefore, my dear devotees are not interested in liberation. They have purchased Krishna. Why do they need liberation? So liberation comes with Krishna. In the next shloka, Krishna says, those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna is saying, the more love you express to me in the form of service, what does Krishna do? He reciprocates with you. He gives you the understanding by which you make progress, which means devotion is not independent of Krishna. You need the mercy of Krishna to come back to him, to go back to him. In the 4th shloka of the Chatushloke, Krishna says, to show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with a shining lamp of knowledge the darkness spawn of ignorance. So I, dwelling in their hearts, not as Paramatma. As Bhagavan, he has taken over the devotees. And he is making sure that all of their anarthas, all of their any more ignorance that they have, if they have, all of that Krishna removes himself. Right? So this is the Chatushloke. So the process to develop firm faith in Krishna is through hearing. In the 2nd shloka, Krishna is clearly saying his mercy is necessary if we need to progress. In the 3rd shloka, Krishna is talking about how to get free of sins. You can get free of sins simply by knowing who Krishna is. But even better than worrying about akarma are those who actually become his devotees. So all qualities are created by the Lord. Tam vibhutim yogam cha mama yo veti tatpatah so vikalpena yogena yujyate natra samshayah. So anybody who's convinced of the Lord's opulences, what do? They surrender, they begin to practice and offer devotional service. So one must have faith that there is a Supreme Lord. His name is Lord Krishna. All the beauty that you see around you, all the variety of creation that you see around you, that itself should convince you that somebody is there, some great designer is there who's designed all of this with perfection. That means he must be hidden like that pearl strung on a thread. Krishna says, everything rests on me. So he's the cause of all causes. He's the sustainer. So we have to understand not only Krishna's existence, but what is his relevance to us in our life. He is allowing you to survive. If the Paramatma was not within you, you wouldn't exist. Krishna's expectation is that you know that he is Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. He's the best friend. He's your well-wisher. And therefore, we should try to understand who he is. You cannot love somebody that you do not know. You know, there's a nice analogy that comes to mind on why Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. So let's say on the material world, you are attracted to someone else. Let's say a boy is attracted to a girl. What does he want to do? He's first attracted by the beauty, external beauty. So immediately he wants to get to know her. So he tries to approach her. And he may begin associating with her and asking her a lot of questions because he wants to understand who she is. Attraction is there, but knowledge is not there. And what does a beloved do to try to impress the other person? You try to purchase nice things and offer it. And the final culmination is that you want to serve that person permanently, and therefore you get into a permanent relationship of being wedded. So similarly, if you want to fall in love with Krishna, you need some information about him, no? Who is he? What does he do? Where does he live? Why you have this attraction for him, you're not able to understand. Therefore, hearing becomes so important. The more you hear about Krishna, the more you're attracted to him. And the more you're attracted to him, the readiness is there to serve him. And once you begin this process of serving by offering him nice things, you fall in love with him. And when you fall in love with him, then you only want Krishna and nobody else in your life. So Krishna is saying, to the extent we try to understand him, to that extent, he showers his mercy upon us. And for the devotees, we know that Krishna has the best interest for us. So we do not question if Krishna sends me cancer tomorrow. If I suddenly lose a loved one, I will not question it because this is part of Krishna's plan. And therefore, whatever decisions Krishna chooses to make in my life, I will simply accept it. I will not question Krishna at that time, asking him, why are you doing this to me? I'm your devotee, don't you love me? So we will not question the love and affection that Krishna has for us when something goes wrong in our life. That is steadfastness. That is Dridhavrata that Krishna speaks about in chapter 2. People who have extreme determination to get him. They don't care how Krishna treats them. So the more attentively one hears, the more one becomes fixed up in devotional service. To understand Krishna and his teachings, we need Krishna's blessings. So we should all consider ourselves very fortunate that we are here in this class, because without Krishna's blessings, you wouldn't be attending these classes. You wouldn't be chanting his names. You wouldn't be coming to the temple. So a devotee never thinks they're doing anything great independently of Krishna. They understand that Krishna has a hand in everything that is happening in their life. So it's a great fortune of a living entity to come in contact with Bhagavad Gita and associate with devotees. In the Chatushloke, Matchitta Madgata Prana Bodhayantah Parasparam Katayantaschamam Nityam Tushyanti Charamanticha. So here's where Krishna is explaining what his devotees do. We skipped Shloka 8, we've come to Shloka 9 on the slide. They're always thinking about him. They're talking about him. They are always gathering together, talking about Krishna. Krishna said this, Krishna did that. Krishna's devotee said this, Krishna's devotee did that. So that is our eternal occupation, is to always be engaged in discussing Krishna and his devotees. So what is the result of knowing Krishna's opulence? The word vibhuti is used in that very first shloka of the Chatushloke. Krishna's opulence is his devotees. So the more the devotees express their love towards the Lord's beauty keeps increasing. His knowledge keeps increasing. His wealth keeps increasing. Which is something that we cannot understand. How is that possible? So the Lord has unlimited opulences. His opulences only increases. It never decreases. And in Shloka 9, what is pure devotion? To always be engaged in the service of the Lord. To always be engaged in devotee association. So Krishna is again giving you instructions. He's saying, don't think you can practice devotion by yourself. You will naturally be attracted to others practicing devotion because you want to spend time with them. It's only natural that we are attracted to those who are attracted to Krishna. And when we get attracted to those who are attracted to Krishna, we automatically attract Krishna's attention. So by serving the devotees very nicely in the temple, you attract Krishna's attention and his mercy. So Krishna is saying he is giving intelligence to whom? To these devotees. Why? So that they can come out of the ignorance and come back and join him in the spiritual world. So this is the essential process. First of all, understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Understanding what's your relationship with it, which is that sambandha. Once you've understood that sambandha, it leads to the next stage, which is called abhidheya. Abhidheya means you now, because you have established or re-established this relationship, you want to perform service. So your sadhana becomes your abhidheya. And when you practice the sadhana in relationship to Krishna as an offering to Krishna, it leads you to that final stage called prayojana. Prayojana is the ultimate goal, which is love for Krishna. So sambandha, abhidheya, prayojana. You establish a relationship. Because you're in a relationship, you have to serve. And through the process of service, you attain love for Krishna. Okay, so this is the important principle, sambandha, abhidheya, and prayojana. So for some reason, the slides were swapped. So Shloka 8 is coming later. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Here's the Lord saying, I'm the owner of everything. Everything comes from me. And those who know this, they become my devotees. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, dadami buddhi yogam tam, I am giving them that intelligence by which they can come to me. So what is the trick to progress in bhakti? It starts with our goal. Your only goal in life should be to achieve Krishna and to become fully Krishna consciousness, or to practice Krishna consciousness more and more. What's the qualification that is required? Your sincerity and devotion and your activities. The sincerity and devotion has to be exhibited in the form of activities. That's the qualification. What's the expectation you should have? That you only want to perform some seva for the pleasure of Krishna and his devotees. You should have no other motive. If you can adhere to these three principles, which is my only goal in life is to get Krishna. I know the only qualifications that I need to develop is my own sincerity and my expression of that love for the Lord through bhakti, devotional service. And when I perform this devotional service, I am doing it to please Krishna and his devotees. I don't have any other expectation. This is unmotivated, unalloyed love for the Supreme Lord. So if one wants to progress in Krishna consciousness, then one should not consider Krishna and his name ordinary. Krishna is non-different than his name. Srila Prabhupada and the other acharyas have said, when you're chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you are relating to Krishna directly. Krishna is there with you. So devotees try not to waste their time in mundane things. Over a period of time, as your sadhana develops in its perfection, you will give up things that take you away from Krishna. I was listening to an interview with His Holiness Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj. He recently took sannyas. He was born and raised in UK, although his parents are originally from India. So in this interview, he was saying how at a very young age, he used to always think about what is this world about? Why are people suffering? What's my goal in life? And at the age of 17, he came into contact with ISKCON devotees, but he always genuinely had attraction for the spiritual path. At that time, he told his parents, I want to go live in the temple. Don't worry, I will come back. I want to just explore spirituality. So in the process of exploring spirituality and being in the temple and doing a lot of seva at a very young age, he developed deep attraction for the Supreme Lord. So he talked about how he had to have very loving but difficult conversation with his parents to let them know that he wants to take up brahmachari ashram. He wants to leave his house for good. And how he had to have those conversations over the objections of his parents. But he said, I had to approach it with deep respect and deep love for my parents. I had to acknowledge the fact that this is going to cause them a great deal of pain. And so he becomes a brahmachari in the temple. And 20 years later, he takes sannyas, the sannyas ashram. So Maharaj is just 42 years old now. He took sannyas a couple of months ago, and I watched that entire sannyas ceremony happening in the temple in UK, in London. So what he was saying is, we don't have to leave anything for Krishna. We only have to add Krishna to everything in our life. So we don't have to give up everything for Krishna. So he said, a sannyasi has not given up everything. And he actually used a very nice sentence. He's a brilliant preacher. I've listened to his classes. Actually, some of the content that I'm covering in the classes and some of the pastimes that I'm covering in these classes actually come from his classes when he was a brahmachari. He's a phenomenal preacher, very young, very, very humble, gentle. I was fortunate to take his association briefly in the Vrindavan Yatra. He was there in the temple. He's visiting India right now. So he was saying that हमें कुछ नहीं छोड़ना है, सिर्फ कृष्णा को जोड़ना है, which is we just have to add Krishna to everything that we do in our life. So the sannyas ashram, the brahmachari ashram, is not for everybody. And it doesn't mean that you can only learn to love Krishna if you become a brahmachari or a sannyas. You can be grihastha. And he gave a lot of examples of so many grihasthas in the scriptures and Bhagavatam, including the Bhagavad Gita. Janaka Maharaj is a grihastha. Grihastha have achieved pure love for the Lord. They didn't give up their family. But therefore, what he was saying is, eventually what will happen is your taste for other things will reduce, your taste for Krishna will increase. And Krishna expects us to be sincere and perform service to him and his devotees. So at that time, Arjuna says, I've accepted that you are the Supreme Lord. And the reason I'm accepting it is because all the other great sages have already said that you are the Supreme Lord. So if you look at Shloka 12:13, Arjuna said, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. And Arjuna is giving proof. All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa confirm this truth about you. And now you yourself are declaring it to me. So Arjuna is saying, I have heard that you are the Supreme Lord from others. So Arjuna is not making an inaccurate statement here. He is actually associated with these devotees of the Lord. So he's saying, I have directly heard from Narada Muni, from Asita, Devala, and Vyasadeva that you are the Supreme Lord. And now you yourself are confirming it to me. You're declaring it to me. And then Arjuna says, oh Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your own internal potency, O Supreme Lord. Origin of all, Lord of all being, God of gods, Lord of the universe. So Arjuna is praising the Lord as the Supreme Lord in this 15th shloka. Although Arjuna has just said, you are the Supreme Lord, I've heard this from other great sages, and now you are declaring it yourself. He is still asking that question again. He says, can you tell me a little bit more about your vibhuti, your divine opulences by which you pervade these three worlds? And then he asks a question, O Supreme Mystic, how shall I constantly think of you? And how shall I know you? In what various forms are you to be remembered? indicating that the Lord has different forms. So how can I remember you? O Janardana, again, please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. And Arjuna is exhibiting a wonderful quality of a devotee. A devotee is never satisfied hearing about the Lord. They just want to hear more. That's why you keep coming back to classes. That's why some of you will keep attending this Bhagavad Gita class, even though you've heard it before. O Janardana, I am never satiated in hearing about you, for the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. I want to hear from your divine lips. And then the Lord responds, yes, I will tell you of all my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent. Krishna is saying, I can't just keep describing to you my opulence because my opulence is limitless. So, but because you have asked, I'm going to give you some examples of my opulence. And the Lord begins by talking about his opulence. He's already discussed in chapter 7, chapter 8, he's given examples. Now, because Arjuna has asked, Krishna is going to continue. I am the super soul, or Arjuna, seated in the hearts of all the living entities. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marichi. And among the stars, I am the moon. Of the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. Of the demigods, I am Indra, the king of heaven. Of the senses, I am the mind. And in living beings, I am the living force, which is consciousness. So if Paramatma was not residing within you, you would not have consciousness. Of all the Rudras, I am Lord Shiva. Of the Yakshas and Rakshasas, I am the Lord of wealth, Kuvera. Of the Vasus, I am fire. And of mountains, I am Meru. Of priests, O Arjuna, know me to be the chief Brihaspati. Brihaspati is the guru, spiritual master for the Devatas. Of generals, I am Kartikeya, and of the bodies of water, I am the ocean. Of the great sages, I am Bhrigu. Of vibrations, I am the transcendental Om. Of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names. So if you want proof as to why we chant the holy names of the Lord, you can give this shloka 25 from chapter 10, where the Lord himself is saying the topmost sacrifice is to always use your lips to chant his names. And of immovable things, I am the Himalayas. Of all the trees, I am the banyan tree. And of the sages among the demigods, I am Narada. Of the Gandharvas, I am Chitrarata. And among perfected beings, I am the sage Kapila. Of horses, know me to be Uchishrava, produced during the churning of the ocean for nectar. Of lordly elephants, I am Airavata. And among men, I am the monarch, which means the king represents the Supreme Lord. The king should only rule knowing that he's doing this on behalf of the Supreme Lord. It is his duty to perform and provide good administration for the pleasure of Krishna. Of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Among cows, I am the Surabhi. Of causes for procreation, I am Kandarpa, the god of love. And of serpents, I am Vasuki. Of the many-hooded Nagas, I am Ananda. And among the aquatics, I am the demigod Varuna. Of departed ancestors, I am Aryama. And among the dispensers of law, I am Yama, the lord of death. The final exam comes in the form of Yama Maharaj, in the form of death. Among the Daitya demons, I am the devoted Prahlada. So the Lord himself is saying his greatest devotee is Prahlad. Among subduers, I am time. And among beasts, I am the lion. And among birds, I am Garuda. Of purifiers, I am the wind. Of the wielders of weapons, I am Rama, Lord Ram. Of fishes, I am the shark, and of flowing rivers, I am the Ganges. Of all creations, I am the beginning and the end, and also the middle, O Arjuna. Of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self. So the science of the Atman is the topmost science. The science of understanding that we are the spirit soul, Krishna says, is the topmost science. And among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. Of letters, I am the letter A. And among compound words, I am the dual compound. I am also inexhaustible time. And of creators, I am Brahma. I am all devouring death. And I am the generating principle of all that is yet to be. Among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. Of the hymns in the Samaveda, I am the Brihat Sama. And of poetry, I am the Gayatri. Of the months, I am Margashisha. So now you know why Margashisha is held so dearly in our heart, and we do so many devotional services during this month. And of the seasons, I am the flower-bearing spring. I am also the gambling of cheats. And of the splendid, I am the splendor. I am victory, I am adventure, and I am the strength of the strong. Of the descendants of Vrishni, I am Vasudeva. And of the Pandavas, I am Arjuna. Of the sages, I am Vyasa. And among great thinkers, I am Ushana. Among all means of suppressing lawlessness, I am punishment. And of those who seek victory, I am morality. Of secret things, I am silence. And of the wise, I am the wisdom. Furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences, which means everything comes from Krishna. There is no being, moving or non-moving, that can exist without me. So the Paramatma is the origination of all that exists, and the Jivatma cannot exist without Paramatma within. O mighty conqueror of enemies, there is no end to my divine manifestations. What I have spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Krishna is saying, I have described very little to you. You should know that all of these descriptions are coming from just one little spark from me. And then Krishna asks Arjuna, but what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Krishna is saying, just my one small amsha is in charge of this entire material universe, is supporting it in the form of Mahavishnu. So Mahavishnu is just one spark of Lord Krishna, one fragment of Lord Krishna. With that, this entire universe is being created, managed, and destroyed. So he wants to know more. Why does he want to know more? Arjuna is asking these questions really for our benefit. By hearing more and more about Krishna's opulence, we are ready to surrender. So we've already gone through these shlokas. He's asking these questions for the benefit of you and me, so that Krishna himself describes his opulence. Second person who benefits is when the devotees hear the Lord describing himself, we can relish it more. We can taste the nectar of the Lord's supremacy. And it allows us to be absorbed in thinking about Krishna and how great he is and how insignificant we are. So accepting Krishna's greatness by hearing about his opulences can lead us to the transformation of both our heart and mind, our consciousness and our mind. So again, Bhagavad Gita should be understood in the Parampara system. Only when one performs bhakti, it is actually fruitful. Just reading alone does not get you the benefit. Hearing, chanting, and doing seva, they all go together. Krishna reveals his opulence to Arjuna. So Krishna is saying, you cannot understand me. What's the point of you asking all these questions? You can ask 10,000 questions. Whatever I tell you, you will still not be able to understand me. This is how powerful I am. Therefore, I am opulent. So this is the Shloka 25, where the Lord talks about Japa Yajna. Maharshinam Briguraham Giram Asmyekam Aksharam Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi Stavaranam Himalaya Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi. Of all the yajnas, thinking about the Lord and chanting his names, Japa Yajñosmi. Krishna is saying, chant my names. That's the topmost sacrifice. So like this, Krishna is saying, just by looking all around you, by looking at the qualities in others, you can see that I am there in everyone and in everything. So, chanting of the holy name, the Lord is there in his name. The Lord is there in his devotees. His topmost devotee is Prahlad. The Lord is there in the presence of great sages like Narada Muni. So everything Krishna says comes from me. The spiritual science of the Atman comes from the Lord. So to purify our senses, we hear about the Lord. We have to remember that Arjuna is not in ignorance, although we said in the first chapter, he seems to have been put under ignorance, but that was by design, by Krishna. So without the super soul, we cannot exist. And Krishna says, all you need to know, Arjuna, this entire thing, this cosmos, this Virat Rupa, this Vishvarupa, is being held together by just one single fragment of me. So oftentimes we get asked this question. We thought Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu. But here it is the opposite we are telling you. We are telling you that Vishnu comes from Krishna. So this is the highest form of tattva that one needs to understand. That Krishna expands himself into Balaram. That's his first expansion. Balaram then expands into what is called the Chatur Vyuha, which is Vasudev, Shankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. From this expansion, which is the Moola Shankarshan, this first Shankarshan, comes Narayana. There is one more Chaturvyuha expansion, which is called the Mahashankarshan, which is Anantashesh. From that Shankarshan comes the three Vishnus. So Krishna is the top of the ladder. Then Lord Balaram, then the Chaturvyuha, then the Lord Narayana, then under that another Chaturvyuha. And from that, Lord Vishnu's. So that's the separation between Lord Vishnu and Lord Krishna. So Lord Krishna is original, and all of the avatars are actually avatars coming from Lord Vishnu. Except for Krishna, because he says, I am Swayam Bhagavan. When he says in the Bhagavad Gita, I come in my original form. So Krishna's original form is the two-handed form. And tomorrow's chapter we are actually going to get into the form of Krishna, the three forms. So today's chapter was titled Vibhuti Yoga, the opulence of the Absolute. And what is the opulence of the Supreme Lord? The single word summary for today is Bhakta. The opulence of the Lord exists in his bhaktas. So chapter 7 summary, single word summary was boss. Chapter 8 single word summary was the insurance, the spiritual insurance. Chapter 9 summary, the password to enter into the spiritual world is to perform bhakti. And Krishna says, my devotees perform so much bhakti that they become my opulence. And therefore, the 10th chapter, single word summary, is the bhakta. So now you see there is an interconnection. The Supreme Lord, the bhakta, performing bhakti to establish and relish that relationship with the Supreme Lord. So that's the triangle. Bhagavan, bhakta, bhakti. So the relationship between bhakta and Bhagavan is in the form of bhakti, the topmost relationship. The most intimate relationship, Krishna says, is actually performed by his bhaktas. And the Lord is compelled to reciprocate with his bhaktas. So much so, for his pure devotees, he comes under their control. So tomorrow we will take up chapter 11. Chapter 11 is the very famous Vishvarupa Darshana Yoga. So Krishna is going to talk about his three different forms. So the boss wears various types of clothes. Depending on the types of clothes that the Lord wears, you have a particular relationship with him. So we are going to understand the three forms of the Supreme Lord in the Vishvarupa Darshana Yoga tomorrow, chapter 11, when the Lord reveals his Vishvarupa form, then he reveals his Narayana form to Arjuna, and then he comes back to his original form as Swayam Bhagavan Krishna in his original two-handed form. So we'll stop here. Vancha kalpadarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha anantakoti vaishnava vrindi ki jai Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.